Yo, what's good? Back here at the river, my office, and put my shirt on. I just swam, but I want to come at you today with another life story. Okay, so I told a story of the time that I tripped on acid for the first time on a mountain under a solar eclipse. And today I'm going to talk about the first time I smoked weed, okay? The first time I smoked weed. And this takes place before my LSD trip, back at the end of high school. Okay, so I gotta preface this story just with how I got there, how I got into this situation smoking weed in high school. Okay, so you may remember from my other video, I was homeschooled from like 4th grade until 8th grade, and I went to public high school in 9th grade. Okay, so coming into high school after being homeschooled was like, quite the experience. It was quite the experience, to say the least. Obviously, I was super socially awkward and really had no clue how to like navigate the social world at all. Okay, yeah, I was pretty advanced academically for sure, and so I didn't really have to try in my classes hardly, but the social aspect was super tough. So let me just tell you about my first day as a freshman coming into high school. So, catch the bus in the morning, pretty cool, nothing really crazy happened, and I got to school, okay? Now, thankfully, I had one friend who was also homeschooled, and this friend was like, in the cafeteria, so walked over, sat with my friend, talked about whatever, I don't remember. It was kind of a haze, honestly, because I was pretty nervous about how the day was going to go. So, I have this class schedule, right? And first on the list is advisory. So advisory, I know it's called different things in different schools. So basically it's like, what do you even say? It's the biggest waste of time class of all time, but it's basically like your homeroom, okay? And it was listed first. Now, I see next to the room number, it's like port. So I have no clue what that even means. So I go to the office and I ask, like, what is this room? I have no clue what this is. So it turns out my advisory was in like this trailer, a good walk away from the main high school. A good like 5-minute walk, way up the parking lot over by the district office. There was multiple like trailers, so they were called portables, okay? But they were basically just like trailers. And so I literally I follow this stream of kids walking up there. And I'm like, heck yeah, I found my class, dude. It's way the heck out of the way. This is kind of weird, but I get into the portable and I sit down, okay? And I just sit there and I'm listening, and it becomes apparent pretty quickly that these are not freshmen in this classroom, okay? And after I realized that, I pretty much piece things together and realize, dude, I'm in a driver's ed class. These are not freshmen. And now I'm just sitting there and I don't know what to do because I'm obviously nervous and I don't want to like make a commotion and raise my hand and leave or anything. I didn't know what to do. So I just froze and I just sat there through the whole class period. And finally the bell rings, and I go up to this teacher. And I'm like, dude, I don't think I'm in this class. And sure enough, he's like, no, actually, you're not in this class. You're in my advisory class. This is my driver's ed class, and you need to come here. It was later in the day. It was listed first because it's advisory. It's like a special class you have all 4 years, but it was not first in my schedule. Okay, so I'm pretty dazed at this point, and obviously I had this 5-minute walk. So by the time I get back to the main high school, I'm already tardy. Like the bell has rung, and the next class on my list is band class, which, I play the clarinet. I'm excited for band class. So I get to band, I know where that is. I get to the band class, and as I'm getting there, basically, they quickly informed me, yo, you missed band class. That was first period. This is choir. So at this point, I'm totally tardy. And so I'm like, oh my God, am I going to make it to any class that's correct? So then I think I look next on my list of classes, and we have health class, 9th grade health class, up in room whatever, upstairs, 218, I think, I can't remember, but it was like upstairs. So I flip and book it, get upstairs, walk into this classroom, and mind you, the bell has rung probably 5 minutes ago, so I was tardy as hell. So I get into this room, and it's literally completely silent. And this teacher, she's this old lady, and there's not one sound in this classroom. They're all just staring at me as I walk in. And I start walking, and I'm like, I want to find a desk, right? But I didn't want to sit in the front because I'm nervous. So I walked to the back of the classroom with literally no one saying a word, including the teacher. Okay, but it pretty quickly becomes apparent that there are no free desks in this classroom, except for one, which is exactly at the very front of the classroom. So as I slowly become aware of this, the teacher awkwardly says, "This desk will do." So I literally I must have been totally red in the face, dude. I come up to the front, sit down, finally make it to the correct class. And actually, nothing much else happened in that class, okay? But, after that, I just followed my list and made it to each class pretty much all right. Now, by the time lunch rolls around, the bell rings for lunch. I brought my own little home pack lunch, of course. Not going to be eating that nasty public school unhealthy food, So, man. So, actually, I'm skipping ahead. I think it must have been 3rd period. Yeah, because lunch was after 3rd period. I have my Algebra 1 class, and I end up sitting next to this girl who just, immediately tries to befriend me, right? She's, talking to me, and oh, I can show you around, yada, 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 you're new, that's so cool, blah, blah, blah. And, I'm feeling hey, that's kind of nice, because I didn't really know what to expect, And so, by the time lunch rolls around right after that, she's like, oh, do you want to sit with my table, So I ended up sitting with them, and it was there was different categories of tables, obviously. And this was the youth group / nerd table. It was not the nerd, band nerds, it was the youth group. Not super intellectual nerds, but they weren't hanging out with the jocks and they weren't hanging out with the druggies, right? It was more of the Christian group, okay? Most of the rest of the day was pretty normal until I get on the bus, okay? I get on the bus and I sit probably the 3rd row from the back, and there's this kid with he's an emo, classic emo back in these days, 2010, it was 2010, emo, fucking long hair, probably some kind of eyeshadow, piercings, and dude, this kid turned out to be, he turned out to be this girl, ex-boyfriend. They had just broken up, okay, this girl who befriended me, and so he's pissed. He's oh yeah, she's such a whore, she's already hanging out with this other guy, and all this shit. So I'm just oh my God, what do I even do? So it was one of the most traumatic days. The kid didn't do anything, there was no problem. I don't know, I do not remember him much after that. He must have gone to juvie or got shot, I don't know what happened to that kid. He was not in school very long after that. So that gives you a little preview. That was the first day of freshman year. Okay, now every day of high school after that, I got slightly more socially adept, okay? It was a slow and difficult process, and it took a long time. Now, you just gotta fill in the blanks. We got freshman year, sophomore year, and about mid-junior year, okay, I had got to the point where I wasn't anywhere close to the top of the hierarchy in the social hierarchy, but I was probably around the middle. I was nice. I got along with everybody. I was in certain clubs like band, and I did Knowledge Bowl. I was like a big nerd, but I was kind of like a cool nerd. Pretty much. So I remember it pretty clearly. I was in my trigonometry pre-calculus class, my math class, and I'm sitting next to one of the cooler dudes, honestly. One of the cooler dudes, and in our class, in my class in 2015. Dude, and he's talking about how he wants to run for senior president next. We're gonna do the elections for the ASB, candidates, and he wants to run for president. Now I need to come up with a name for this guy, because he's pretty significant to this story. Dude, he has such a unique name that's so perfect for him. Dude, I'm gonna call him Brad, honestly, because he's kind of fat, but in a like jovial way. He's like on the football team. He's like on the line on the football team, and honestly, he's one of the coolest people in our grade. Even though if he didn't act cool, he probably would have been not cool. But he was just like owned his body, always laughing, always telling jokes. Brad, perfect name for him, okay? And he's gonna run for school president. And so me and my friend, who was like a hyper nerd, he was almost like a sidekick kind of friend, super cool kid. Call him Abel, okay? Call him Abel. Now, just to paint a picture of Abel, he was so goofy. He was obsessed with Adventure Time, loved Adventure Time, and the only thing he ate was flaming hot Cheetos and eggnog. He would drink eggnog, never water, never soda, nothing. And the only thing you'd ever see him eating was flaming hot Cheetos. And he would tell me he would stock up around Christmas time for the whole year on eggnog, because you can't always find eggnog throughout the year. So basically, we got the class, the math class, and we got Brad, and we got Abel and me, and a bunch of other people, just shooting the shit after like the lesson, and we're supposed to be doing our homework, but we're talking, And Brad's like, yeah, I'm gonna run for ASB president. What if you and Abel were my campaign managers? You guys are the smartest guys I know, so I should make you guys my campaign managers, right? So I'm like, that would be awesome. I have like photo editing skills, and I used to use computers a lot, doing animation and image editing and stuff. And then Abel's like, he's gonna take care of the quotes and the design of the poster, and I'm gonna actually do it, right? The posters and the memes and shit. So we get to work, and we make like awesome posters. They're super funny. I Photoshop Brad, onto like Arnold Schwarzenegger's body, and I remember one quote Abel came up with. We put on there. It was like, once challenged Chuck Norris to an arm wrestling contest and survived. Vote Brad, right? So now, mind you, we're at a tiny school in rural Washington State, so there's no one running against Brad. There's no one running against any of the ASB positions, okay? So, man, we like make these speeches, and we go up on stage, and Brad owns it and wins the election easily, because there's no one going against him, obviously. But I'm telling this part of the story because this is what got me into sort of like the the cooler end of the social ring, kind of like the jocks. And at the end of that junior year, basically Brad and the other ASB officers, after they saw my skills with Photoshop and video editing, they're like, you should join our ASB class. And the teacher was a super cool lady who was all about leadership, and she was like the mom of the school, basically. And she's like, yeah, you have skills, you should join the ASB leadership class. And so I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool for my senior year, 7th period, I remember. And it got me close with these like school leaders who were also like the jocks and the kind of cooler kids in the social hierarchy, okay? So basically, I worked super hard senior year, doing all sorts of leadership stuff. And honestly, since I was homeschooled and stuff, I had just a lot of skills. Like, I got up on the stage and talked and made speeches, and I remember the very first assembly, like, we set up this whole, like, epic walk-in with music and a custom-made 3D animated video I did, and we filmed, you know, all sorts of videos around the school, you know, like for the rules and for the homecoming week, and we had free reign, dude. Like one time we put different people in the tiger outfit, because our mascot was the Tigers, and we went around and terrorized the whole school and filmed it, you know, going into classrooms, just literally like pranking everybody, and then filming it for the assemblies and stuff, okay? I helped with the dances. I was just like super involved in the leadership of the school, and since I had so many skills, I was honestly doing more than a lot of the ASB leaders themselves, which was pretty funny. But that's just how it goes, you know, that's what real leadership is, that you have to have skills, man. If you don't have the skills, you can't pay the bills, right? So, honestly, senior year was really fun. Like, I got over most of my social hangups, but I still have a lot of social hangups from all those years of, like, not being around people. And, you know, so, coming towards the end of my senior year, Brad is in my conditioning class. Like, you know, we're lifting weights and stuff. And I guess he had pretty recently started smoking weed, because he was, like, just giddy about it. And he, like, asked me, yo, like, hey, do you want to smoke with us? And mind you, this whole time in high school, I've been researching psychedelics, weed, and a lot of drugs, like heavily. I would go on Arrowhead and read the trip reports, and so I knew the drugs that I wanted to try in my life, and weed was definitely one of them. The thing is, though, I had never come across the opportunity to actually smoke weed in my high school years. You know, like, there were kids doing it, but they were just not, I was not part of their social circle. So by the time senior year rolls along, at the very end of it, Brad asked me, you know, do you want to try smoking weed? And I'm like, hell yeah, let's go. So basically, him and a couple other guys are gonna get together at Brad's parents' house. Now, Brad's parents are super chill about smoking and drinking and shit. Not that I knew that at the time, but we make this plan to go over to Brad's parents' house, okay? And Brad's like, yo, you should give us some money so we can buy the weed and, you know, shit. So I did it. I forked out $60. I remember I gave him $60, okay? And we have this plan. After school on Friday, we're going to go over to Brad's parents' house, and we're going to smoke, okay? And spend the night and, like, you know, have a grand old time, right? Now, mind you, I am, like, pretty fucking nervous about this, because I had told them, like, yeah, I've smoked a little before, up at summer camp, right? Up at summer camp. And I just felt like I had to say that because, you know, I had to say it because, like, oh, you never smoked before? That's not cool. But, so I made this little fib, right? And so, I was super nervous that Friday, and honestly, like, at the time, I didn't even have a phone, so the only way I could communicate with texting and shit was on Facebook. So I just jumped on the bus. I was so nervous. I literally jumped on the bus, went home, and didn't check my messages all weekend. Okay, now that made it way worse, because when I went to school on Monday, they're like, what the fuck happened? Like, where were you? Like, what the hell? And, I don't know, I said some bullshit, like, excuse. I don't even remember what the excuse was. But they're like, well, let's do this again on this Friday. And this time I had there was no getting out of it this time. And I wanted to, I was just nervous, right? So literally, Friday comes along after school, and literally, I leave my car it wasn't my car, it was my mom's car. It was a family car, one of them. We had two cars, one for the kids, one for the adults. Left it at the school, and I go with Brad and these two other guys, okay? We call one, he's like a Hispanic dude, Danny, okay? And then this other tall, lanky dude, all in our class. We'll call him Benny. Okay, that's the perfect name for him, literally. So there's 3 of us. We get in Brad's truck. I'm in the back. Dude, somehow they were all 3 in the front. I guess it was one of those trucks with like 3 seats in the front. And, you know, now mind you, I live in this like really rural town. And so Brad's parents' house is a good like 45-minute drive into the mountains. And so we're driving, and I just remember being so nervous because they're driving pretty fast. And pretty quick out of town, they bust out this pipe, okay? And they are pre-gaming in the truck, okay? And mind you, I've never hit a little pipe before, a little, you know, little bowl. So they hit it a couple times, and then they pass it to me. And I'm learning quickly, right? I'm like observing how they're doing it. So I try to smoke it. And I've smoked a little bit of tobacco up to this point, as well as chamomile, which is another funny story. Like I wanted to smoke, man. So I had smoked chamomile and a little tobacco. So I was trying to smoke it, but I never really got a proper hit, okay? You know, we were smoking the whole way up there, man. But I was so nervous, like putting my seatbelt on, like, fuck, we're gonna die. Like, we're gonna crash and die or you pull over. Like, I'm fucking nervous as hell. So then we pull up to Brad's parents' house, right? And these motherfucking parents, dude. So he lives typically with his, like, stepmom or grandma or something. Like, he didn't live with these guys full time, okay? But they're literally, like, drinking beer, and they're just totally, like, down with us smoking and drinking in their house with them. So literally Brad's, like, tells his dad, like, yo, you need to go get us alcohol. And somehow his dad just goes all the way 45 minutes to town and buys us beer. And, like, I think we had Fireball too. I think we had a thing of Fireball, like a 5th of Fireball, and some kind of beer, man. I don't remember what the beer was. God, I can't remember. Maybe, it was Twisted Teas, dude. Yeah, that's what it was. It was Twisted Teas. It was, and then some random beers I think his dad had in the house. Because, like, as soon as the dad left, they started raiding the fridge, dude. So, pretty soon they bust out the beers. You know, I drink a little bit at this point, like, with my family. So, like, I've had beer, but I had never had whiskey, okay? So, they give me a beer, and they bust out these 2 bongs. They're, like, looking back, they were pretty nasty, kind of dirty, like, little bongs. They were not to my, like, standard of cleanliness at this point, but you know, took a sip of beer, and they loaded the bong up for me, dude, and they helped me fucking hit it, because at this point, I wasn't high from the little pipe. Like, I did not hit that shit properly. I did not really feel anything, just a little tiny bit, barely. But they, like, light it for me and pull it for me, and I take a real bong rip. And let me tell you, for like 3 seconds, I'm like, nothing. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm coughing my ass off probably. But, like, oh yeah, I remember coughing my fucking ass off like I've never coughed before. It was brutal. I thought I was gonna die from that first hit. But I, like, stopped coughing finally, and then I'm high as shit, okay? This was like a cool moment in my life, because it was really the first time I was ever actually intoxicated. And so basically what I remember is just this overwhelming sensation like I was in a dream. I was like, oh my god, I'm basically in a dream right now. And it felt like my mind and their minds just connected into one mind. And they were kind of like giggling and like just observing me, you know? And then I just got super enthusiastic and we were like, oh my god, like, and I was saying that, like, this is like, we're in a dream, like, da-da-da-da-da. And I was super, like, enthusiastic for the first probably 10 minutes, okay? For the first 10 minutes. I think probably just that one hit would have done me good. But of course, these guys are like fucking, I guess, sort of heavy smokers at this point, because they're just loading up this bong, dude, over and over. And you know, that first hour, I was pretty, like, coherent, and, like, I was feeling great. Pretty soon, they poured me a shot of whiskey. And, you know, I thought into the movie, like back to the movies, how people will take their first shot of whiskey and like spit it out. So I'm just like, dude, I'm not gonna do that, you know. So I literally take this shot of Fireball, and to be honest, and I did not experience this horrible sensation of like that people do. And even to this day, when I take a shot of whiskey, not that I have drank in a while, quite some time, I don't find it, I don't need a chaser, like I don't need shit. I don't get why some people can't really handle the whiskey, dude. I've always thought it tasted good, like I don't need to chase it with nothing. So I was pleasantly surprised that this whiskey didn't make me like throw up or, you know, spit it all out or anything. But dude, they keep passing me this bong, and I don't remember how many hits I took, but pretty soon I was like not really able to speak anymore. They were just shooting the shit, laughing their asses off, you know, drinking a lot and smoking a lot. And they were like rolling up joints a bit, spliffs. I remember they had this pack of cigarettes and they were like sprinkling in the tobacco, making spliffs. And pretty quickly, I was not really saying anything. I wasn't having a bad time, but I'm just like kind of an introvert, a big time introvert, you know, naturally. So I kind of like, what do you call it, kind of slunk back into my mind and just was observing the whole situation. Alright? So, at some point the dad comes back with a bunch more alcohol, right? And, you know, I'm like, I wasn't that drunk. I was mostly high. I had like one shot and one beer. I remember they were trying to get me to drink more, but I've just never been a big alcoholic kind of motherfucker. Like, I just don't even like drinking much. And, like I said in my other video, like, you cannot peer pressure me. I don't give a shit. Like, you're gonna be like, chug, chug. I don't care. Like, I'm not gonna chug. So, you know. So, I remember, yeah, the dad comes back. We get more alcohol. They're drinking a lot. We go outside at this point. Probably like an hour or two into this. We go outside. And mind you, I live in this hillbilly-ass place, okay? And we're in like this little cabin with these motherfucking drug addict parents. And, dude, we go outside, and Danny pulls out like a fucking rifle. And he's like, let's fucking shoot the rifle. So, dude, I remember he's like, boom, shooting into the air. It's like, bam. And I was like fucking terrified. It's like, oh my God, this is fucking scary. Like, now I'm gonna get shot. Like, oh my God. And then Brad's like, fucking, let's get on the four-wheeler. Okay. So I've never actually rode a four-wheeler before this or after this. Actually, never mind. I did ride a four-wheeler after this, but this was the first time I rode a four-wheeler. And so he's like, get on board. I'm going to drive you around. So they have this like course through their land of like hills and jumps. It's like a quad course, you know? So I'm just hanging on to him for dear fucking life. And he's just cruising so fast, laughing his ass off the whole time. Because I'm probably screaming. I'm pretty sure I was screaming the whole time. I do not like speed and adrenaline, like, or roller coasters, or you going fast in any capacity. So I was literally just like fucking terrified, getting drove around on this four-wheeler. And thankfully it didn't last too long and we didn't roll over, because I was legitimately afraid for my life at this moment. Okay? And at some point we got off the four-wheeler pretty fast. And I think the other guys took it for a spin and stuff, you know. And pretty soon we built this little fire outside, and, you know, I remember, like, Brad starts puking, okay? I never puked, which I'm proud of. I never puked. I held it together. I never puked this whole night, okay? And we get pretty much just obliterated. Like, pretty much just obliterated. And, you know, the parents aren't really hanging out with us, but they're also getting obliterated in the house, okay? And when it gets dark as hell and stuff, we come in and the fire goes out and stuff. We come inside, and just like the vibes start changing, right? Like, I remember Brad's stepmom was like not having a good time. Like, she was too intoxicated. I bet these people were doing other drugs too. Like, by the time you're like 50 something doing drinking and smoking with like teenagers, you probably are doing other drugs too. So I just remember she like fell down on the ground, And no, like Brad or none of the other guys, or nobody, or the dad, nobody was like helping her. And so, like, me being me, you know, always the responsible one, I'm like trying to help her up as she's like falling on the ground, okay? And so I did. I fucking helped her and got her up like into her room or whatever so she could lay down. And I remember that, but everything else was pretty hazy. And basically, like, we just smoked and drank the entire night, you know, and went to bed probably, you know, like 12 or 1 or something. And you know, woke up in the morning and boom, time to wake and bake, dude. They're like, time, we call it wake and bake. You know, I forgot to mention a key detail. A key detail was, according to Brad, he got himself and us Girl Scout cookies. So apparently this was Girl Scout cookies strain. I cannot confirm that necessarily. There is a certain like taste and smell of that weed I will never forget. But I can't really say that any Girl Scout cookies or cookies I've had since then was really like reminiscent of that, to be honest. So it may or may not have been Girl Scout cookies, but I wanted to throw that in there because back in 2015, which was when it occurred, Girl Scout cookies was the shit, dude. Like that was what everybody wanted. So this is what we said we had at least. And anyway, so we wake up in the morning and it's time to wake and bake, right? And I was like feeling fine, like I felt fine. So we just smoked a couple of bowls out of these bongs and fucking. I was still like locked up. I wasn't saying much, you know. But they were like, so it was like, did you have fun and stuff? And I was like, yeah, dude. Like, I did, honestly. I did. It was not a bad time, even though there were some moments that were like scary, but they weren't scary where they were scary in a like self-development kind of way, you know? You know what I'm saying? So, some point, probably like 10 or 11, they drive me back to town. We all go back to town. I pick up my car from the school, and I do remember being nervous about driving because, like, you know, I was still intoxicated because we smoked that morning and shit. And, you know, I was like really careful driving and got back to my mom's house, and I was super paranoid that like she was gonna smell weed on me, you know. So pretty sure I like came inside, like changed all my clothes, and you know, she's like, I told her I was just going to go to a sleepover, right? And so like, oh, what did you guys do? And I was like, oh yeah, I just like played video games and shit, you know. And it was kind of odd because I never went to any sleepovers, like to any friends that my mom didn't know. So honestly, she was pretty like protective during my childhood. So it was pretty cool for her to not like give a shit about this or investigate where I was going. But you know, I was 18 and like about to graduate, so that was probably part of it. And so yeah, that was like my graduation into kind of being included in, I would say, the upper echelon of cool people in high school, as well as my first time smoking weed, which was super memorable. Like, I don't think I've felt that good from weed ever since then. You know, like it was psychedelic as hell. Like it felt like I was pulled out of my body and joined consciousness with these guys, and was in this like dream state. And you know, I haven't really experienced that since then, to be honest, with weed. I have with psychedelics, but even though I've taken long tolerance breaks, like right now I haven't smoked for 3 months plus. My longest tolerance break has been 8 months, and you know, I don't know, this one might last a while. I'm really enjoying not smoking weed right now, but even after those tolerance breaks, I come back and I'll smoke, and it'll be really intense for sure, but it's not the same as that. So I hope you enjoyed, and maybe you can relate. I know I have a slightly unique situation coming from the homeschool life, so hopefully you can appreciate that perspective from a formerly homeschooled kid trying to get into, you know, partying and shit. So yeah, I'm gonna keep telling more stories. Honestly, I can't stop thinking about all the stories I want to tell because I've had actually an insane life. super unique but insane. So stay tuned, and let me show you where I'm at right now. I'm in this like little water hole by a waterfall. Whoa, sorry, point up. It's kind of like a cistern out here in the jungle. There's the waterfall. There's the beach over there. And the waterfall's up here on the other side. So, all right, hope everybody enjoyed. Peace.